All right, everyone, we're going to call the meeting to order. Is everyone here? Good evening and welcome to the SJVA PCD Environmental Justice Advisory Group meeting. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, here are some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices such as your cell phone. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. I will call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for a roll call, please. Is Katrina available for roll call, please?
Oh, can you not hear me in Bakersfield?
No, sorry. Yeah, we do. Maybe not.
Same here in Modesto. We can't hear Fresno.
Okay, testing. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to start roll call over. Ms. Martinez? Mr. Graywall?
Here.
Mr. Freitas? Ms. Gutile? Ms. Vielma?
Here.
Mr. Helm? Mr. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez? Ms. Matthews?
Here.
Mr. Liba? Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Cunha? Mr. McLaughlin? Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And for agenda item number 3, approve minutes from our January 23rd, 25 meeting. I will now ask if there are any corrections or additions from the members to the minutes previously submitted for that January 23rd meeting, EJAG meeting.
Through the chair, there was an error in the attendance of the meeting minutes. Does not reflect that Mr. Williams was here. I have made those edits. So if there aren't any other additional changes that need to be made. Any other changes anybody wants to make? Okay, I will call for public comment on the minutes. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Any public comment in Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Any members of the public in Fresno like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Chair. I think you can deem them approved with the corrections stated.
Okay, the minutes have been deemed approved with the corrections stated. We'll move on to the public comments. This time is available for comments from the public on matters that are not on the agenda. It is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. The public may make comments on each EJAG agenda item during the time allowed for public comments. Attention is called to the fact that the EJAG is prohibited by law from taking any action on discussions of matters that are not on the agenda.
Do we have any public comments in Fresno? Any members of the public in Modesto would like to comment?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comments in Bakersfield.
There are no online comments.
Thank you. And as requested during our last meeting, I will identify which EJAG goal/objective is being addressed by each agenda item. And moving on to agenda item 6, update on attainment plans and rules. This is tied into goal or objective number 8, which is the EJAG will continue to be informed and updated regarding air quality and climate legislation and regulation as appropriate.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chair and your board. My name is Emily Nealand, and I am the Director of Air Quality Planning here at the district. A couple of brief updates for you all this evening. Pretty consistent with some of my updates this last time. Haven't been a ton of major things happening. The first update for you is at the governing board meeting last week on the 20th. My team presented information to the governing board on the air quality progress that's been observed over the last 3 years, which is indicative of preliminary data showing that we're looking like we're in attainment of the 1997 annual PM 2.5 standard of 15 micrograms per cubic meter. And as part of that update, we notified the governing board that my team's now beginning to prepare a maintenance plan, which is an option under the Clean Air Act to be officially redesignated to attainment of that standard. So this maintenance plan will cover both of the 1997 standards, both the 24-hour and the annual averaging portions. So I'll keep you updated as that progresses. My other update, I let you know at the last meeting that CARB held a public hearing in February to prepare recommended designations for non-attainment of the 2024 PM 2.5 standard that was established of 9 micrograms per cubic meter. So they did recommend that the San Joaquin Valley be designated as non-attainment of that standard. So those recommendations have now officially been sent off to EPA for their consideration. And then my final update is related to our rule amendments that we've been working on for contingency measure requirements for both the 2008 and the 2015 8-hour ozone standards. This is a set of 5 coding rules that we committed to amend in our ozone contingency package just this last year. So we did hold a scoping meeting in December and plan to schedule an additional public workshop here in the coming months to continue that public process and progress with that rule as well. And that concludes my updates, but I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. And moving on to agenda item 7, update on district wildfire prevention and response strategy and collaboration opportunities with land management agencies, which goes towards goal objective number 8. EJAG will continue to be informed and updated regarding air quality and climate legislation and regulations as appropriate. This item has been an ongoing request from the EJAG membership, and we're grateful to be joined by the district staff as well as the member of the U.S. Forest Service today to present on this item. Thank you for your guys' service.
Good evening. My name is Robert Gillis. I work here at the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. I'm a program manager in the Air Quality Science Department. And I'll share some updates on the districts, just some district updates in the first slides here. And then we have a guest here from the U.S. Forest Service, and he'll be sharing some updates on their behalf. So a lot of this might be just reminders and updates, but I'll go through these and we can answer any questions at the end if I've gone too quickly. But just as some updates, the district, we definitely see emissions from wildfires. When they happen, they definitely can be very enormous and they can exceed all the total mobile and industrial source emissions that we would otherwise be seeing in the valley. The wildfire emissions easily overwhelmed any control measures that are in place for those typical emissions that we have. And then the wildfires also lead to really excessively high PM and ozone concentrations. So it's a big effect on air quality. Recent wildfire seasons have become more and more intense as a result of some probably familiar topics as well, long fire suppression policies that have led to excessive fuel buildup and drought-driven tree mortality, changing climate. And then there were significant wildfire impacts in recent years, just record-setting seasons, namely 2020, 2021, and then there's still an active year in 2024, although not as bad as those previous years. There were still wildfires throughout the year that impacted our air quality. So it's an ongoing topic. The district also has a longstanding position in supporting a wide range of fuel reduction efforts to help out with the wildfire problem. And this includes prescribed burning. This is one of the areas of support from the district. So for the district, the efforts and support include supporting prescribed burning projects like I mentioned, where it's providing enhanced flexibility in the approval process and the decision process when prescribed burns would happen. We work closely with local land management agencies. We issue air quality advisories and air quality alerts when wildfire smoke impacts do occur, so that it's a mechanism for broadly communicating to the public when the smoke impacts might be more severe or more long lasting. And we also have local commercial and residential air filtration grant programs that are managed here at the district to help people in their homes with filtration when there is wildfire smoke. And then we're also enhancing outreach through social media partnerships with Valley County public health officers and the media in general to just help make sure that the word gets out when there are air quality impacts from wildfires. This slide is mostly just a summary of some of the statewide efforts that are going on and some of the areas where fuel reduction goals are being supported. CAL FIRE and the Forest Service have agreed to 1 million acres per year to be treated annually for restoration purposes by 2025. So that's this year. And also the governor's office and the Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force, they've created a dashboard to track these fuel reduction goals, the progress towards the goals. The link that's there is just a link to their dashboard, but the next slide, we have a quick just image of what that looks like. I won't visit it here right now, but it's available for anybody afterwards. National Park Service also has the Wildland Fire Strategic Plan that covers the period of 2020 through 2024, where they're describing plans for actively managing forest and fuels. And then also in the state and federal funding, there was $2.6 billion in state funding or in the state budget over the 7-year period, over 7 years, but that's been reduced recently, of course, I think is maybe not a big surprise there. And then also there's $5 billion in federal IRA funding. So there's a lot of efforts across the state on this topic. It's a very important topic to help reduce the wildfire impacts. And as I mentioned, this is just a view of what that webpage looks like, the interagency dashboard. I just highlighted, it's hard to read, so I just highlighted that number on the bottom is showing over 1 million acres were treated in 2023. And then the quick trend upwards is just showing that it does appear that the efforts are resulting in more acres treated on an annual basis. So there are still needs for additional fuel reduction resources and solutions. Some of the topics that contribute to this are just summarized on this slide. There are biomass disposal regulations in 2025 that are contributing to a growing need for fuel reduction efforts. And as I mentioned, the 1 million acre goal for treatment in agreement with CAL FIRE and Forest Service. Also, agriculture open burning in the San Joaquin Valley has been phased out, greatly reduced. And so there's a lot of need there in that area as well. And then there are state landfill diversion goals, and that's something that's also contributing. And these challenge highlight that the challenge highlights the need for longer term alternative solutions, which includes bioenergy, diverting woody and organic waste, and just looking for alternative disposal options. And the state's priority climate action plan seeks to expand the biomass to carbon negative biofuels program. I did have to read that. I'm not super familiar with that one, but we'll keep going. And that was aimed at producing low carbon and carbon negative fuels from forest and agricultural biomass, which also helps to address critical issues such as forest health, wildfire risk, and air quality concerns. So there just remains a strong need for the district to partner with and to support local agencies and different project proponents where these efforts are happening, and to just try to really help support these solutions to the problem. So we are collaborating with local fire organizations, including some local fire safe councils and these local councils and prescribed burn associations. They focus on fire safety education and fuel reduction projects in the San Joaquin Valley. So they're doing some work on that. And then the district also strives to do more, to more strongly support fuel reduction efforts by local organizations. So this includes supporting local grant applications through letters of support. We receive requests for things like that, and we're able to support them that way. We're also attending local meetings, and we're providing education on district programs. And we're also supporting efforts to identify and seek additional grant funding in support of the local efforts. So we're taking some of these roles here to support local fire organizations. And this is just a quick update on the hazard reduction burning MOU that the district made with CAL FIRE. In 2022, CAL FIRE had developed an online burn permit portal. And this is applicable to hazard reduction burning, which is done to remove brush and vegetation from around structures in the state responsibility area. And that also requires a permit by the district though. So this is the joint effort in the agreement that took place and started in November 2023 as a way to streamline that permitting process for residents that have this need. So last November at the district's governing board study session, the board heard from a panel of key stakeholders that had provided updates on this topic. So that included updates from the California Department of Conservation, CAL FIRE, and U.S. Forest Service. And at that meeting, speakers had provided to the governing board perspectives on agency fuel reduction goals, progress, and alternative solutions for biomass across our whole region. And so tonight I'll share the CAL FIRE updates in the next slide, and then I'll pass it over to Trevor here from the Forest Service. So these were the updates that were shared from CAL FIRE toward this topic. And so by 2025, the land managers are seeking to deploy beneficial fire on 400,000 acres annually. And then I'd be happy to read all through this blue here. This is quite a lot of info. I don't want to bore everybody, but it is a breakdown of annual targets for prescribed fire by different agencies and land management agencies, and just kind of showing how that might look from CAL FIRE's perspective. And then the resource benefits that they're looking for from, or that they're highlighting here, 100,000 to 150,000 acres from the Forest Service, 20,000 to 50,000 acres from National Park Service. So again, this is just some updates from CAL FIRE on how this breakup might look and where the acreage might be coming from and which land management agencies might be achieving these. So from there, like I had mentioned, we have Trevor Law. I'll let him introduce himself, but he's here from U.S. Forest Service. Yeah.
Of questions. I'm gonna back into it because what you just said. It's like when the cops get there, they get there after the fact, right? It's not, they don't get there when the guy's shooting, they get there after he's been shot or after he's shot. It's almost the same thing with these wildfires. Well, we're doing mitigation work, right? All we could do is mitigate. We aren't really doing the necessary work that we could do with the prescribed burns and other methodologies to do that. And I would like to ask you, Ryan, what, in your opinion, is the difference between the impact of ag burning versus the impact of wildfires? You have like a personal opinion or a staff opinion of what you guys have that calculated out, what the impact difference is to the air quality in the valley?
Yeah, you said Ryan. I'll answer. It's okay. If
I'm
Ryan,
sorry. I'm sorry, Ryan.
No, that's okay. So because there's actually a Ryan here, so that's the only reason.
I apologize.
One of the perspectives I do have on that though is not a precise quantity of one versus the other, but one of the things that is a part of the district's robust smoke management program is when these types of burning are allowed to occur, when they're authorized, it's all permitted. It's the entities, whether it's a grower that has an agricultural open burn, which is the phase out is really reduce the amount of open burning that can happen for ag lands and ag materials. And then even in the hazard reduction areas where the state responsibility area, those days are authorized burn days. And then same thing goes for the prescribed burning, the broadcast burning, pile burning on the land, the federal lands, the wildlands. Those are all authorized on days that are favorable with the meteorology and air quality conditions. And all those things are really carefully considered on the authorization days before any burning happens. So usually the impact will be, it's going to be really mitigated a lot through that process.
Robert's almost basically the same then, right? Really? I mean, the same process, same steps go through a prescribed burn. You're burning wood up in the mountains versus wood down in a valley, right? Or do you see anything really significantly different between those two operations?
There are differences, of course, in the size and the amount of burning that can occur. But again, there are a lot of factors that can go into when an authorized burn would happen, depending on not only meteorology and air quality, but size of the burn and the materials that are involved and elevation. All of those things are very important to consider. And then that really helps with the district being able to support these types of projects through just that program in general, to be a lot more flexible when we're allowing them to happen.
I think one more question on this, impact of Trump's federal freeze on the money, federal money freeze. How's it impacting us on these programs and projects that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I'd love to hand it over for Trevor's updates, at least for his perspective from the U.S. Forest Service. I don't think he can speak for everybody, but from his perspective, I think he's probably got some thoughts on that he'd be happy to share. I don't want to speak for him either, but of course, he's a little better positioned than I am to speak to the federal.
I just wanted your thoughts because you work with the Air District. How's it affecting the Air District?
I'm not anticipating effects here. We have local rules and regulations where our burn programs and the whole process for that are going to continue the way they have. It's our local rules that we're following. I mean, of course, there are other factors to consider, but that's not directly related to federal funding when we are authorizing burns or of any type.
Okay. And one more question. With this strong need for district to partner with support agencies and project proponents working on developing these solutions for need for additional reduction solutions, we have bifurcated incentives. And, if you want to have partnerships, you've got to have an incentive program that's consistent and beneficial to all. And what's good for one's good for the other, I think. And like we have a biochar in the agriculture industry right now. They've been introducing these new biochar machines where they completely burn with no NOx residual out of them at all. Would the district be interested in seeing that kind of a machine? He's either doing a test projects or a pilot project here in the valley, working with some ag burns. I mean, I wonder if that would be something the district could get behind and participate in.
Yeah, I certainly can't speak. I mean, I can continue to help get the message around here. I think in general, if that type of device is interest of the burners, I'll let Ryan have his comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Ryan Hashi, one of the deputy air pollution control officers. And I'm smiling because we also have Manuel Cunha, who participates in our ag tech group. And I mean, that's some of the things that they talk about specifically are current technologies, things that are out there that should be considered and looked at for disposing of these materials, definitely wanting to find alternatives to open burning, and really appreciate Manuel's been a great advocate in this area and support, and has been very vocal in trying to bring more funds to do research in that area and to do more of that work.
Yeah, because the way the industry's going right now, they're running out of money, and the commodity prices are so low that a lot of them just can't make it do that. It's almost.
Yeah, we're meeting regularly with ag stakeholders, talking about those very specific issues and what can be done, and working in collaboration with whether it's USDA, whether it's NRCS. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Robert.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
You guys ready to share the next?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Trevor Long. I'm the Fire Management Planning Specialist for the Sequoia National Forest with the U.S. Forest Service. Our headquarters are in Porterville, California. We have 3 districts on our forest. One in our northern district is a Hume Lake district, which is probably more proximate to Reedley area. We also have our Western Divide Ranger District, which is proximate to Porterville and Springville, and then our Kernville Ranger District, which is obviously closer to Kernville along the Kern River and the headwaters of the Kern River as well. I'm here to provide a little bit of an update on what we're doing, just a little bit of a disclaimer. I work for the Sequoia National Forest, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the region, but I'm certainly not an authority to speak on regional activities nor national activities or national budget or anything like that. But I can provide some context of what we're seeing on the Sequoia National Forest. As you can see here, I work for my chief, who is Joe Gonzalez, at the Forest Fire Management Officer level, and he works for our forest supervisor, who oversees all the operations on our forest. I'm going to talk a little bit about, as I mentioned, our regional strategic planning highlights for this fiscal year in front of us. Our fiscal year runs from October 1st. So when I talk about fiscal year, kind of get an idea, right? So fiscal year 24 would be from October 1st of 2024 backwards, and then fiscal year 25 was from October 1st, 2024 to the present. And I'll talk a little bit about our fire accomplishments and some of our prescribed fire planning that we've had for this fiscal year, and some of our current updates and challenges. As mentioned, as Robert mentioned earlier, the California Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force at the regional level, the Forest Service is aligning our targets with this task force in California amongst all the agencies to reach 1 million acres annually. That is a goal that we're striving for, and the Sequoia National Forest has, a little bit of a piece of the pie of that 1 million acres. Also, we are trying to meet objectives of the wildfire crisis strategy, including wildfire recovery. Currently, the Sequoia does not have a landscape designated in that strategy. However, we do support our partner agencies such as the Stanislaus and other forests, even within the district here. Another strategic point in the region is to leverage our joint investments with neighbors and partners. Now, specifically on the Sequoia, we are partnering with the Great Basin Institute, PG&E, and Save the Redwoods League in prescribed fire and fuels management. So they also provide some funding for mechanical treatments and other vegetation management methods, not just prescribed fire. Although what I see mostly is the prescribed fire end of it. So some of our accomplishments, I don't know if it's, yep, here it is, fiscal year 24. We did treat about 7,000 acres, 7,000 acres of hazardous fuels treatments, and of that, just over 2,500 acres was prescribed fire treatments. This is from, as I mentioned before, fiscal year 24. Some of the areas where we really feel like we advanced was with our neighboring partners in the Tule River tribe. We have strengthened our relationship with them, and they are providing us resources and support on certain burn projects, and we are providing them with the support and participation in cultural burning, which we've been trying to establish with them for a while. And I believe we are entering into formal agreements to help them manage incidents as well. So we're moving along in that area. Aside from just doing treatments on our landscape, we're also working with our partners as well. Much like the state, we also have our own dashboard of fuels treatments within the region. It's kind of going back to the region level here. For 2025, the regional target is 350,000 acres. As you can see, this is the current numbers, just a third of that so far. And just under 25,000 acres of that is actual prescribed fire. The rest is mechanical treatments. You can see on here that the Six Rivers National Forest is much further north of here. It has the in the bar graph there, the tallest bar, right? So they're currently doing the most treatment this year so far. So moving on to planning this year, we have had multiple projects identified as priorities on our forest, some 10,000 acres planned. Again, this is what we plan. This is what we strive for. This is what we hope for. We hope for the best conditions, optimal weather, that we have the qualified personnel, that we have all the funding that we hope for to be able to accomplish 10,000 acres, and then reality sets in. So even though we know that reality may not be optimal for us every year, we still plan landscape style burns such as these here, the Big Stump Redwood Fuels Restoration Project. We've been working on that project for several years. We have a few more units to burn, around 514 acres. I don't see that it may be a very high probability that we will accomplish that this year, considering that probably the best window to burn was in the fall, and we didn't really capture that for one reason or another. With resources, with weather, again, it's very dependent on multiple factors for us to be able to accomplish acres. And then spring burning in this area is even more difficult. So we'll see how that pans out. Now, the Joey Forest Health Project, they have 7 more units, and that's a little bit newer project that we started last spring, actually. And there is a higher probability that we might be able to accomplish a few units there this spring, just because of its location and at the rate of which it dries out for us to burn at a lower risk, right? So there is a probability that we could go for some acres at the Joey, but again, it depends on funding, weather windows, personnel, qualified personnel, all that stuff. So we'll see. Some of the more probable projects that we have and that are even today, we were able to burn a couple of pile burns, not in this district, it was in the Eastern Kern district. But some of our projects that are pile burn projects are a lot more probable, just because of the low level of risk, the low amount of funding that it takes, the amount of qualified personnel doesn't take the amount of resources to accomplish those acres. And so projects such as the Black Mountain Grove, where we have approximately 10,000 piles in that project that are ready to burn. Again, this is all efforts and restoration from the Pier and Windy and Castle fires. And this is where we have partnered with the Tule River Tribe, because this project literally borders their reservation. And so in that agreement, we have had some of their qualified folks in their fire department come help us in that project. So we're proud of that accomplishment. And there's other pile burning projects around the forest that we could possibly go after at the right weather window. So far this year, again, remember that 10,000 acres that we talked about earlier? Well, this is where we're at right now, at 170 acres over multiple projects across all of our districts. We have a lot more to come. We have some really amazing things that we can look forward to. We have some opportunities and our NEPA processes right now that could allow us to do a lot more burns at landscape level. We'll see how that NEPA comes out. It could provide us with an opportunity to abound more prescribed fire projects. We also have our Alder Creek understory burn, which boundaries with the Mountain Home State Demonstration Forest right outside of our national forest. Again, the Black Mountain Grove, as mentioned earlier, and the Breckenridge Community Project, which was awarded $5 million during the last fiscal year. So that is currently in sort of a planning phase to where they're actually going to go to work on that. So that planning phase is implementing. So they're actually designing units and cutting a line around units and looking at accessing those areas. So that's going to be coming up soon. Working for the National Forest and the government is, of course, has its challenges just like any other agency. We are under a severe budget uncertainty at the moment. We don't know when we're going to have a budget, if we're going to be able to hire seasonal employees. We don't know if we're going to be able to hire qualified permanent employees. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, which affects our ability to accomplish burn projects, not only currently, but in the future. And that affects our ability of qualified burn bosses. We are notoriously understaffed in qualified burn bosses, I think, across the region. And we have some challenging weather conditions, right? Not every winter and transitions into the spring and summer are the same. And so like, for example, I mentioned the Big Stump project. We had just a few units accomplished. The best time would have been in the fall. Well, our best weather window happened to be Thanksgiving break, right? So those are just the typical challenges that we come with our weather conditions, right? But we can celebrate what we have accomplished. So like I said, even under this budget uncertainty that we have, we still knocked off 170 acres and got some piles burned. We're still able to do that. Even sending all the crews and resources that we had to send down to the LA area, we're still able to get some of our fuels management targets accomplished, right? Even though just a small portion of it, we're still able to do something. And our continued relationship with the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, I think is something to celebrate, that we're able to work together. And we encourage all of our burn bosses to get on the daily weather update and establish a relationship with the district so that, you know, we work together when we have a window to burn and we want to take advantage of that. So again, thank you very much for inviting me. That's my update. Thank you for the advisory group, not only here in Fresno, but also in Bakersfield and Modesto for the time, and I'll take any questions.
Do we have any member questions?
To the chair, we have a hand up in Fresno. If you'd like, we can go to Fresno first, and then we can call in questions from Modesto or Bakersfield, if that works for you. Mr. Chair.
Yes, let's go with Fresno.
Okay, Mr. Freitas?
Hey, Trevor, I'm sorry, but who are the decision makers that allocate the funds to? You're talking 170 acres out of $10,000, a 10,000 acre target, and you got 170 acres. You see, that's just fodder. That's more fodder for Trump administration to go after you. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Who makes up what is your overall budget? I guess you do not have the information for that.
I don't have the information for our overall budget for prescribed fire. A lot of our funding for prescribed fire also comes from grant funding, as mentioned earlier, the partners that we work with. We are not allowed to spend any of that partnership money at the moment. And we don't have any operational funds at the moment to even purchase burn fuel mix for our districts to burn piles. So the piles that we are burning are from fuel mix that we've had already.
Wow. Okay, so could you explain the difference to me on that page there that does, it says align with California Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force, 1 million acres annual strategy. Could you explain the difference to me on this page, what it means, the difference between wildfire alignment and forest resilience? I just want you to just break that down for me. You got,
Oh,
sir,
the
you got
ali-
wildfire and forest resilience. What is the difference between a forest being resilient and wildfire resilience? What's the difference between those two? So I can understand that.
How I can,
See, I mean, it's.
yeah, how I can put it briefly is pretty
Yeah.
complex, right?
Okay,
So, forest resilience, as from a fire perspective, we start looking at fire interval rates. We start looking at fuel types. We start looking at, because obviously our forest here throughout California is a fire adapted ecosystem, right? It needs fire. For it to be healthy, our forest needs fire. And so without fire, there's other ways to manage our forest, through thinning, through logging, through some of this other biomass initiatives that we talked about earlier, through mechanical thinning. There's a lot of other different ways, but Mother Nature's real medicine is fire. And so forest resilience is really about how we introduce fire on the landscape in a healthy way. Wildfire doesn't necessarily mean that it's a healthy fire for a landscape. When you just go up to the Sierra National Forest on your way to go ski or something, right? You just see how it's moonscape to what we might call it in some areas. That's not really healthy. That's not forest resilience. So there's finding that fine line of introducing fire on the landscape that promotes forest resilience in a healthy forest, so that in a long term, we're looking at reducing the severity of wildfires. So I think that's kind of where those intertwine there, without diving way deep into
get it?
that.
Do you know who would be responsible for making the decisions on the budget, how the money gets spent for these two types of alignments? Where wildfire alignment versus forest resilience alignment? Who in the forestry department is the top dogs that do that
Well, we just got a new chief of the Forest Service today.
today?
So essentially, our spending comes down to me from my chief, and comes down from my chief to the regional delegation, and the regional delegation to the national delegation, and that starts with the chief of the Forest Service.
Who's the chief? What's the chief's name?
It's just brand new, I guess.
It's okay.
Yeah, he's today,
My
right?
cousin's gonna be christened the chief of Fresno's PD tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, so I am kind of familiar with that. So I'll Google it, right?
Right.
We all
So
Google it.
Brandy Moore was our previous chief. He is retiring, I believe, next week, and so we have a new selected chief today.
Forest Service is under EA budget.
I have one quick
Correct.
question,
Okay, so the budget's under there.
but it's off the fires, but I'll
Okay.
ask you anyway,
Thank
because I
you.
got you here.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Williams?
Forest properties up in Northern California, I see a lot of fences going up along the highways to keep people out of the forest. Are you guys doing that in our forest down here too?
Usually fences on forest are from cattle grazing allotments and permits. And those ranchers have put those fences there to corral their cattle essentially in those allotments.
I can tell the difference.
Right.
These are very unique government installed fences that are, and they've got the deer crossing mounds.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. No,
Highway
no.
89 from Truckee going north, it's like they've just blocked off a ton of the forest to keep people out.
On the Sequoia National Forest, again, I can speak for the Sequoia National Forest.
Right.
I don't know of.
You're not doing that?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, thanks.
I have one more question, Chair, if it's okay.
Do we have any other questions? And we can finish up with you?
Yeah.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Could you explain, Trevor, the difference between a religious, or is there such a thing as a religious burn versus a cultural burn?
As far as on the Sequoia National Forest, I don't have any recollection or record or knowledge of us doing a religious burn. We are working with the Tule River Tribe as our neighboring partner for them to conduct cultural burns that are significant to their heritage and culture and on their tribe, because they do have some significant properties in the Sequoia National Forest that they would prefer to do those cultural burns on. So we work with them to be able to facilitate that. I wouldn't know how to define a religious burn. Again, I don't know that we're doing any of that practice on the Sequoia, but for cultural purposes with our neighbor, we help them facilitate that.
That's my thought. Do they like register with you, get together with you first and say, this is part of our culture and this is what we do? Could anybody do that? Could any group of people go up and say, hey, this is part of our culture where I was born and raised. We used to burn all the time. We did burns. We use them for religious ceremonies or for whatever reason. Can they register with you to do that? Is that possible?
I don't know what the process is particularly. I do know that we have an agreement with the Tule River Tribe to facilitate prescribed burning on the forest. But again, it's for cultural purposes and very small scale cultural burns that aren't really landscape changing per se, right? These are very small scale, more cultural burns rather than a burn for resource benefit, right?
You said something earlier when we talked out there about some of the other details around why they can do it.
Remind me, please.
The assets, the
Right,
capacity,
okay, so-
capacity and capability.
Right, so yeah, currently our neighboring tribe has a small fire department. They have a handful of qualified individuals that work on a fire engine, and to pull off a landscape size burn, it takes a lot of qualified personnel, including a highly qualified burn boss, firing boss, holding boss, just a whole organization of people to be able to do a landscape understory burn. And they really can't provide that. And I think it's not really aligns with what a cultural burn is. It's more for cultural significance. And so they're not really looking to do larger scale cultural burns. Again, it's like 1, 2, 3 piles. And it's more for their cultural purposes. And we have an agreement to be able to facilitate that with them, and other agreements to be able to help them get involved with incident management teams whenever we have large fires on our forest. That way the tribe has a voice in how fires are managed at the larger scale.
There's no incidents where any one of those cultural burns could get out of hand, and then all of a sudden your resources are pulled into the picture, and now we're dedicating federal resources to take care of a cultural burn.
I would never say never, but we have lots of mitigations in place.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. It looks like we have another question. Sam Joaquin.
Yeah, I have a
Yes, so
couple of
sorry.
questions. Sorry. Oh, okay. So I have a couple of questions because I don't know if we got skipped over on the last one on the presentation. I know on the component that said for the state and federal funding that we don't know really how much the reduction is going to be for in terms of the state budget. But do we have maybe a timeline on that in terms of the fuel reduction goals? And then on the 5 billion in federal funding for the IRA funding, is that dissolved, on hold, frozen? I don't know if you have the answer to that. What page is that? 4.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I can certainly help look into that. I don't have those answers. I don't know exactly about the reduction, but I do see where the question's coming from, so I can see if we can find anything about that.
Okay, yeah, that would be great, just because of the fact that I know that those will be the questions that I'll receive, as far from our community members. And So that was the question that I had there. And then over here in the presentation from the Forest Service, Ryan mentioned, the Acuna does the ag tech alternative to the open burning for ag. Is there something similar for the Forest Service in terms of like a tech component to it as an alternative to the open burning? And then in terms of, helping, like you said, the reduction or the severity of wildfire, like to try to look at that from the technological perspective. So I don't know if that's the mechanical piece of it that you were talking about.
Affirmative, yeah. It is the mechanical piece that, again, heavy equipment that's going in to reduce fuels, remove fuels that are in the forest. And so like the technology unit, I think you guys were talking about something similar to Firebot. I think that's what I know of. And, our landscape is very, very rugged, and something like a Firebot would not be really effective in the landscape in the areas that we look to burn. But so the mechanical treatments are actually more effective using heavy equipment that can go in, and a lot of times that's through contracts.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that answer. Along those same lines, this is one of the issues that we're dealing with in our area. We have an organization that is coming in with regarding wood pellets. And so our understanding is that they're harvested from the forest residue by said organizations, and those are then made into wood pellets. Is that accounted for in the data that was presented?
I do not know the details on where the vegetation mass ends up. So yeah, I can provide those details.
Okay, because it kind of like in both of the presentation looks like it's included. I just wasn't sure, because that's one of the questions that we're being asked as far as how that comes into play, because the organization that's doing this is working with Forest Service. And so and that would clarify a lot of things for some of the organizations that are basically thinking that that the harvesting is done and it's not in a controlled manner, and that what the forest residue does and doesn't do. So there's a lot of confusion right now in our community there in Stockton. And so I guess if we can get some clarification in the future, and we could put that on as a future item, that would be really great, because that is a question. Because everything that you presented was great, and especially the cultural component and how that is, small scale. And then when you stated about how you currently couldn't purchase the burn fuel mix, and that's why I was thinking was like harvesting the forest residue, would assist in that process. So if maybe we can get clarification in the future on that, that would be great.
Esperanza, if I could suggest, to bring some of the other partners from the Forest Service in the district. Stanislaus National Forest, I think, is up in the Modesto area. The Sierra National Forest is another forest that generally they have other mechanisms to do fuels treatments. I believe they have landscapes in the wildfire crisis strategy that we don't have, right? So I would say my suggestion would be to reach out to some of those partners to ask if some of those vegetation management contracts, where they might be, where those forest products could be ending up. Excuse me.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's very informative, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, through the chair, out of Fresno, this is Manuel. I have a question for probably Ryan. The first thing, Ryan and Hayashi. But before that, I want to thank the Forest Service for taking the time to come here. Whatever we need to do, we need to protect the redwoods. We cannot let them fail because the government is inept to give you funds. And whatever we need to do as citizens and people, even as the Air District, but mainly the citizens, to protect that piece of history, to let political party rhetoric and then suddenly have a bad fire like we just had in Los Angeles is a disaster to the world. If they could talk, they would tell you a lot, and then people would go to jail probably. But I want to thank you very much for coming and having the actual Forest Service here to answer questions is to me a very important part for the communities. And I know I used to teach at Ridley College through the Forest Service program. And the kids that used to go up to Sequoia up and stay up there at the camps, and then those students became foresters, just like you. And today, those students of mine have retired, which I'm not very happy with, because they're 65 years old. That doesn't mean they can retire. Okay. But again, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for the partnership, because without the partnership, we wouldn't be able to accomplish, these projects that we have to protect the sequoias.
But thank you. Ryan, do we have yet what, it's maybe too fast yet, of what amount of damage was done with LA fires to where, what the LA fires burned is nothing like what happened at Shaver Lake and all of that, Huntington and all that area. It's a different type of material in somewhat, houses did get burned. But the amount of emissions that came out of that Los Angeles fire that did sneak over the top and went elsewhere. And then the residue from the landscape with a particulate matter issue. Last week I saw somebody in some pretty heavy suits. I thought we were at Mars or on some other planet called Moon, what they were wearing. So it would be great maybe down the road. I don't know when that data will be out or how much emissions came from that fire. And I go back to what the Forest Service said, if we can manage those forests, those areas of management of where they're putting homes, just like where the Oakland Zoo is, of what surrounds that Oakland Zoo is very, very scary. Okay. So I just believe that from the standpoint of EJAG, it's so important for the landscape of this state, because those fires does impact our emissions. There's no doubt about it, and monitors and what was in those monitors. But I think the most important thing is that the Forest Service budget is under USDA. Your secretary has just been appointed two weeks ago. She is the new USDA secretary. She oversees your agency. And I do know that for them to cut part-time help in the Forest Service is absolutely a disaster if they attempt to keep going, because that will make the fires even more probable for the San Joaquin Valley. I know that our farmers stopped burning because of a program that we have proposed, and we do have some real bumps in the road with it right now, but whatever we can do to help our Forest Service, from the standpoint if we have to write a letter from the EJAG, from the chair, to Samir, to the board, in regards to making sure that we do not shrink or take away the staff needed. When you told me you have 10,000 piles of brush, a pile constitutes of what size? That's my first question, right? Is it a 10 by 10? Is it a 30 by 30? And Ryan, I think we could say, what would 10,000 piles of trees look like on the valley floor? tree fruit, right? Or almonds, right? Huh? Bigger than that, right? So that is really scary. And what happened in LA, I would not want any more to happen. What's happened down there to ever happen here. But we have crazies around, and sometimes Mother Nature doesn't like what we're doing. And so takes control. But I think we need to be responsive to the need of the Forest Service and making sure you have the staff, the proper funding, and being able to immediately respond when having to respond. Or if we have to wait for other states to bring people here because we fired everybody, I think is a horrible situation. So what I would ask you, your boss's boss, within the district, is to keep us informed. Because I think our legislators on the congressional side and our state side in this valley, as well as other areas, we need to be kept informed, because if we're not informed, then it's too late. So we need to be involved with you folks on what's happening, and I appreciate the partnership, and I know that San Joaquin Valley Air District has done that for years. So whatever we can do, I want to say that we're there to help you from the standpoint of agriculture. I can't speak for any other person on this EJAG board, but I can certainly speak for agriculture, that we're willing to do what we have to do to help preserve the forest, and especially our cattle farmers, our sheep ranchers, even our goats. The goat machine is incredible. I mean, they eat everything standing and moving, and even if it's a tin can, as they would describe a goat to eat. So, but again, we want to be a part of what's happening. So comment, anything on that, Ryan?
Yeah, a few. Appreciate everything that you said, Manuel. And in regards to the LA fires, there's still, I think, data collection that's going on. In regards to the materials left behind, South Coast has deployed a monitoring system to keep people aware of air quality in the different areas that are impacted, which is really important, because like you mentioned, it's not just wood that burned. I mean, it was a lot of electronics and other things that have toxic materials in it. So having that monitoring network is really important to those efforts. I too want to thank Trevor for coming, and Robert for presenting, and thanking the EJAG for wanting to bring this item to the committee. This is something that the wildfires is such an important issue for all of us living, especially when you're living in a bowl, and if there's any smoke, I mean, it comes here, it stays here. Should all of you remember the Camp Fire and the Lion Fire and the Lightning Complex fires, and how that impacted us. And so I really appreciate the fact that our board has made this a priority in how we and basically gave us direction to make changes, how we interact with the land managers, how we can look for additional opportunities. You go back, prior to the 2014 drought, we approached this much differently than we do now. We were more towards the health protective, thinking about just single incidences versus what impact a wildfire would have. And so now it's much more focused. Our main objective is to work with the Forest Service to find ways to reduce those the possibility of those events from happening. And another one of the things that that was highlighted was the not only working with them, but also working with private landowners. Through the portal that CAL FIRE has developed, and it's made it a lot easier. We've gotten a ton of positive feedback from the people that are using that system, which allows them to very quickly, before they would have to go and travel to a fire station in order to get one of our burn permits to be able to do it. Now they can just hop on their phone and fill out the information and basically get a hazard reduction permit. So I mean, there's a tremendous benefit with being able to go through systems like that, and we couldn't do it if we didn't get the direction from our board to really look at them, find those kind of innovative things.
Through the chair. Through the chair. Okay, so just for statistic purposes, 300x times the amount of lead in the ash dust that was collected in the LA fire. That's what they measured right now. I feel real bad for the firefighters up there without masks. I mean, Trevor, what kind of damage could that do to lungs, man? I mean, without mask, and then the people running around there, the supports people, that's just insane. But I think I'm going to take this moment to make this announcement on behalf of Nathan Magzig, Supervisor for District 5. He presented to us the other day that he is authoring a bill in Sacramento this month that's going to deal with setting up a buffer zone. He wants to set up a wildfire buffer zone up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, down in the lower foothill area, namely, so where the buffer between where, human life starts and wild stops, right? And he's talking about doing that. And I would suggest that the district contact Nathan, get a hold of his team, and the district should support that kind of legislation. And I would like to bring that. I just bring that to your attention, right? Tonight.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Keith.
All right, we'll take this time. I believe we have a public question.
Through the chair, I have Pat Barrett come to the podium.
Good evening. Is it on? Okay. Pat Barrett, Stockton, California. Asthmatic, borderline COPD. So you know how important the clean air is to me. I love this sentence right here. It says need for additional fuel reduction solutions. You had brought up Commissioner, board member. Okay. Are you a board member? Vilma? Okay. She had said something about up there in Stockton that we're working on a project that involves wood pellets. I know you had said something about the Thule Indian tribe, but we also have tribes that are into the clearing of the floor. I personally, when you're talking about additional fuel reduction solutions, I understand tribal cultural burns. That's the way they keep the control of not having a widespread fire. But having wood pellets, I was looking at those piles of growth that was sitting there burning, and I'm going, that's still adding to our district, and so I'm like, why aren't we, when I was up at the Senate last year, they were going, why aren't we just raking some more of that leftover and clearing these floors? And the wood pellet is like the solution that is like, okay, I know burning wood is not the best idea, right? But I also know clearing it takes it across the ocean, which replaces their bad burning coal. And so, and their other fuels. And I would really like to see some support for this wood pellet program. And if you have started harvesting for it.
Thank you, Pat.
Do we have any other comments in Modesto?
No public comments.
Thank you. Are there
Additional
any
comments.
public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comments in Bakersfield.
Okay, thank you. There are no members of the public in Fresno, Mr. Chair.
To
Thank you
ask
very
a
much.
question, we have to know who she's directing it to. If she's directing it to the chair, maybe he might want to respond to her if there was a question in there.
Yeah, if the members there have, or district members have any information for that wood pellet burning, are you guys able to respond to that, or can we take that back and maybe provide an answer at our next meeting?
Yeah,
Through the chair, we can take it.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, we can look into that for more information.
Okay, great. Yeah, we will do a follow-up on that specific question. So at this time, we're going to move on to our agenda item number 8, AB 617, and the community engagement update. This is going towards our goal objective number 10, working with the district to enhance the effectiveness of the district's AB 617 program.
All right, good evening. I have a pretty brief update on the implementation of the state's community air protection program and just our overall valley-wide community engagement on just as a reminder, we have 4 what are called AB 617 Community Air Protection Program selected communities that we're implementing community emission reduction programs as part of state law. One of the really important measures was transitioning older lawn care equipment to other types of lawn care equipment. These pieces of equipment are known to generate, especially older pieces of lawn care equipment are known to generate a lot of pollution, especially in like comparison to like vehicle emissions. And so since these emissions are happening right there at the local level where people are living, kids are playing, transitioning them away was one of the priorities. And so recently they held an event in the Arvin area and we actually paired it up. So we're trying to be good stewards of time and resources. They paired this up along with the emissions testing for vehicles in that community. And so people were getting their vehicles tested, and at the same time, they had the ability to bring a old lawnmower and replace it with an electric one. In addition to that, they were also getting signed up for air purifiers for their homes. We saw a tremendous participation. We tested over 344 vehicles and exchanged 282 old lawnmowers. Here's an example of the air filter device. These are been proven that if they're used in the home, especially in episodes of poor air quality, to have a significant health improvement benefits. And so it's a good way for people to protect themselves during those episodes. And so we have a valley-wide program that's open to anybody that qualifies as low income. Or live in a disadvantaged community throughout the state, or I'm sorry, throughout the valley. So to date, we've provided over, we're close to 7,000 units. We still have a lot of units remaining. And so we're continuing to work with the communities throughout the valley to get these into people's homes. We do this in the outreach in multiple languages to try to reach as many of the Valley residents as possible. And in addition to just providing materials, we actually get out and engage in the communities themselves. We get out to schools, we get out to community engagement events. We're always looking for things. And this is where EJAG plays such an important role in helping provide these opportunities for us. So, I mean, if you know of an event or you know of something that would benefit from us going out there and looking to talk about the district's programs, talk about the different things that the district does, please, by all means, keep us up to date and informed of those, and we'll make every effort to get out to those. And that's our update.
Thank you,
Happy to
Ryan.
take any questions.
Yes. Do we have any member questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Manuel in Fresno. Great. We're just given so you did 3 in one event. You did the lawnmowers, then you did the air purifiers, and then you did the, which is my most favorite program, the tune up and tune out, right? That's like get rid of that car. And how did that turn out, Ryan? I mean, You said 340 something,
344 cars were tested that day.
and that went from like 8 o'clock in the morning until about 4 or
That's roughly about the time, yeah.
so.
And yeah, I mean, it's typically people start lining up about some of the events, 6 a.m., several hours before, depending on the location. There's great demand for it. People want to do the right thing. They want to test their vehicles. They want to make sure that they're operating the way they should. And if they're not, then they get a voucher for vehicle repairs. And so it's a great program.
So if we wanted to do the car piece, right? At a packing house on a Saturday. Let's say, and the workers would come that Saturday. They don't work that day, but they would come that day and the packing house would provide the facility and let all of the people know, and then have something to where you know how many are coming, right? Would you guys are you able to do it on a Saturday?
These events typically happen on Saturdays.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
So this is a contract that we have with Valley Clean
Oh,
Air.
Valley Clean
Yeah.
Air. That's
Yeah,
right.
Clean Air Now.
Yeah.
They're the ones that run the program for us. They look for locations where they're going to get the maximum number of people at the events. I talked about the 4 communities. They have specific programs to get reductions. There was funding put in place for events specifically in there. Now, this one had about equal participation as some of like the bigger cities. So, I mean, it was, working through the community steering committees in those communities, we were able to get really good participation. But yeah, their goal is always to try to find places where they're going to get, anywhere from, ideally 400 to 600 cars in there.
Yeah, some of our packing houses,
A lot of people.
they fall into that arena. And the clean air filter, does a person just drive up and they can take it? Or do you have to go to their home with it?
So, one of the things that we did in listening to the feedback that we were getting from residents in the Valley, low income, disadvantaged community residents, is that even going out and to the location maybe where some of these were being handed out is a challenge. A lot of them don't have cars. They don't have a reliable means of getting there. And so we designed the program where it gets shipped to their homes.
Okay.
So they don't have to. It's a really simple process of going online and signing up for
But if we did a car checkup, we can also do the air filter, air
it.
cleaner.
We are looking to pair things up. Like I said,
I think that was a cool idea because, I mean, you did 3 items and you did 3 great programs.
Yeah.
And we'll work with your team on the tune-up deal with some of our packing houses and the clean air filters. Being that you have about 6,000 left, I think places like Orange Cove, people like or Del Rey, places like Wood Lake. There are farm packing houses, and being that they work most of the time, 5 days, and being that there's a big enough parking lot, that I think those people in those communities, they have a vehicle. I think it would be a great opportunity to see if we can reach out to them, to the packers and stuff, and work with you in the district on both the filter and the tune-up.
Yeah, the nice thing about the program is people don't have to only do it. There's actually what's called a direct method as well. We actually, if people go to the Valley Can website, they can actually find a listing of authorized smog repair facilities. And they could take their vehicle anytime and get it tested for free. And if it fails, then they would be eligible for that voucher.
Correct, yeah. Well, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other member questions, comments?
Yes, thank you through the chair. I'm going to just make a comment. So on the Valley Can, in their effort with the whole component with the the different incentives. I mean, we've been working on that for a number of years. And I'm excited because we're gonna hopefully have that soon in Stockton as part of the AB 617 there. I don't know if there's a date yet set for that, but it's obviously very beneficial to the community, and then the numbers reflect that. And so I just wanted to comment on that because we've been waiting for a long time for this to happen in Stockton. It's been siloed, but now, you know, coming together in this manner. We had our lawnmower exchange. There was like Pat, who made a comment earlier today, was one of the recipients. So and we had, you know, more than enough people that were signed up. So that's, you know, I just wanted to thank the staff for all the work and effort that they have put in to make this a reality. And I'm looking forward to our region there, San Joaquin County, Stockton, to have their day. So hopefully that's coming up soon. And then I had a quick question as far as the outreach component. We had received notification that for CAPA, the funds had been frozen because I guess it's linked to federal. And was there any kind of like notification as to whether that was, you know, because I know they keep getting frozen, unfrozen and such. If there's any kind of information that we can take back to the team as far as what that looks like. with the
Yeah, so for
forecast.
that program, SB, if you have invoices, you know, put those together and give them to us and we'll turn in. Yeah, so we're still collecting those. So if you have any from previous work that you've done, turn those into us. In regards to the events, there is one, I know there's one scheduled, and I'm not sure that this is the only one, but they do have one scheduled for June 28th. It's a Saturday in
Thank you.
Stockton at the fairgrounds.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, district comments. This goes towards goal and objective number 9. The EJAG will continue to encourage consistency and improve attendance at EJAG meetings.
Through the chair, I don't have any additional comments to make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. All right, we'll move on to number 10, potential future EJAG meeting agenda items.
For the chair. Chair, do you recognize me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to be the elephant in the room today and throw something out that's going to probably rattle some cages. But I'm looking at there's a lot of changes going on. I've talked to Ryan about them on the side a little bit. And I think we might need to consider, and it's whether we need to have it as a topic for later on or something the district can take care of. But we might need to consider slightly changing the name of the 2 ethnic small business seats on this board and call them disadvantaged community member seats, small business seats instead, because the way the law is reading now, coming out of DC, we're not supposed to base things on ethnicity anymore. So, but poverty is colorblind, and the disadvantaged communities don't change, the maps don't change, and the people don't change, but sometimes you have to change the titles. It might be something that we have to have a discussion about at some point.
Through the chair, Manuel, I'd like to respond. Derek, if we use the word, what about the word that we finally got this last 2 years ago with the African-American community? They were using disadvantage.
That's what I just said.
Right, but they used another word, socially disadvantaged. Okay, so we got rid of the word socially. We took the word disadvantage, and we used the word underserved. Underserved has so many different parts, but yet it is so neutral.
And it's not racial.
And it's not racial. And I understand where you're coming from, because
We want to stay legal.
in the last 48 hours, we've heard some real wild things happening, okay? But maybe Ryan and the chair is that maybe we can look at the words, and maybe we use the word underserved communities that are in the EJAG committee.
And that could protect funding.
Yeah, and that would protect what referring to as funding that may be coming through the federal process, even through our counties and our cities. But I think the word underserved is so neutral, but yet it has so many other great things to deal with.
Probably the underserved communities, small business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can use the word underserved and we got.
Does that make sense to you also then, Manuel?
Oh, I agree. No, I've already heard the problem. I already heard it and I was not thinking in the realm of what you were thinking of, but I think it has the merits. I really think it has the merits for.
We need to be ahead of the issue and not be chasing.
Well,
the
I
issue
think
a little
we
bit.
just need to change also.
Yeah.
And maybe that was a spark, but I think then it allows us to do other things in that, those two seats, but yet making it more broad and.
So I appreciate the support on my idea. Thank you.
Good idea. Can I be recognized, Chair?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a suggestion for agenda item or maybe a presentation by Joshua Babcock or Nathan Mazag himself on this law he wants to write and introduce in Sacramento on this buffer zone, on this wildfire buffer zone. And I think it'd be something that the district could follow up on. And I would appreciate hearing a little bit more detail about how they want to do it and what it would benefit and how it would work. It's just my thought.
Through the chair, I have a comment in the Modesto region from Esperanza Llama.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So on the topic of disadvantaged community versus underserved, and if it's the business owner that we're speaking of, so then if the business owner previously was ethnic small business owner, so then we're referring to the business owner themselves. So then it would be an underserved member of the community that's the business owner, or a disadvantaged, because Rick, when you said disadvantaged, it made sense because that's the term used by the state. And so then that they are from a disadvantaged community. And essence, like I understand about the protection component that has to do with the ethnic piece, but we're talking about the business owner themselves. So then I'm just, just in terms of terminology, what aligns with the state of California, but then also what describes the business owner, because that's who we want at the table.
My response would be to leave that if it's with Esperanza would agree that the district will get with their legal department and then they'll thrash out which name or title best will serve the purpose and make the most sense for the district. And I would just leave that to the district, basically. I'm okay either way.
Yeah.
I just, whatever the legal department says is the best way to go, I'm good with that. And I'm sure probably Emmanuel and everybody else would be too.
Okay, thank you. And then I do want to, if we're still adding things to the next agenda item, earlier when I asked regarding like the IRA funds and then what that looks like as far as like getting a response on that. And the other thing that we spoke about with the gentleman from the U.S. Forest was about, so I don't know if it would be harvesting or vegetation management contract with the partners from Forest, like what that looks like, the question that we had from our audience, and then also that I had stated the areas that that's happening in is Lassen and Tuolumne County. So I don't know exactly in terms of the forest region that would be specific to that, but if we can get some clarification as to what that looks like to answer that question as well for our folks. And then, obviously it would be an educational piece as far as what that looks like with those management contracts.
I have a comment through the chair on the past conversation with underserved members and disadvantaged. I may need somebody to clarify this for me. Do we serve at does the EJAG serve at the pleasure of the Air Board?
Yes.
So wouldn't it make sense, Derek, maybe to have the language either pass through or consistent with that of the Air Board?
If you're asking me directly, I would just say that the district with their legal department will probably make sure that the title is legal and complies with the way the board has set up our charter when it was put together 15 years ago to make sure that it meets the bylaws. And then if the bylaws change is needed, the district could take care of formulating that change and getting it voted on at the governing board level. Because they tell us what we have. We don't get to write that ourselves.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, do we have any other comments? All right, this is a second opportunity.
Through the chair, can I add, can I add something? I don't know if this can be clarified. I know there's a lot going on for the next agenda, but on one of the reports that we had, it stated that there was a presentation, I guess, somewhere else, and there was, it stated alternative solutions for biomass. And so it was at a governing board, I think it took place. So in terms of getting either more information on that sent to us or added as an agenda item.
Okay, I've made note of that.
Thank you.
All right, so now is the second opportunity for public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. There are no members of the public in Fresno and no one wishing to comment online.
Thank you. And if there's no other last minute comments, we can adjourn and on to the next meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.